The assassination of Charlie Kirk wasn't just mourned, it was politicized and opened the door to something far bigger. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the man who was killed, it was about what his death was turned into.
Christ died at 33 years old, but he changed the trajectory of history. Charlie died at 31 years old. He also now has changed the trajectory of history.
In the days that followed, the tragedy was exploited in different ways. To stifle freedom of speech, to bend algorithms and control narratives, and, most worryingly, to fuel far-right campaigns against migrants and Muslims.
They managed to silence us for 20 years with labels. Racist, Islamophobe, far-right. They don't work anymore.
The aftershock played out on the screens and in the streets, visuals, and of course, political spin. So, how did this moment end up reshaping our conversations about media, power, and authority? Well, let's find out. Now, the theories, they're everywhere, and they're not slowing down. But this isn't about them. We're not here to explain what Kash Patel meant by his Valhalla comments or chase every inside job angle. This isn't that. So if you're here for endless speculation, this probably isn't the video for you. What matters here is what happened next. The assassination of a political figure always draws strong reactions. This one was no different. But instead of a shared response, the country split into very distinctive camps. Those who mourned Kirk, seeing him as a husband, a father, they lit candles, posted tributes, and called for compassion. To them, this was a human tragedy, and politics could wait. Others expressed sympathy for his family, but drew a line. They refused to whitewash Kirk's politics, his rhetoric, and comments that relayed hate. They could recognize human loss without turning him into a martyr. And in sharp contrast, small but vocal groups online responded in unexpected ways. Sarcasm, memes, and even celebratory posts circulated on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, reflecting how polarizing Kirk's presence had been. Some mourned, others rejected, and a few mocked. Together, their voices showed just how fractured the reaction really was. Now, free speech has always been held up as a cornerstone, especially in America, where the First Amendment enshrines it as a fundamental right. Kirk often leaned on that banner, using free speech to defend sharp and sometimes hostile rhetoric, framing words, no matter how cutting, as part of open debate.
I'm a free speech absolutist, through and through. So I don't draw a line. That's me. I say that you should allow all opinions to be heard.
It's called Judea and Samaria. It's not called Palestine.
You don't believe that Palestine have the right to exist?
No, everyone has a right to exist. Show me where it is. It's a non-existent place.
But what happens when that same principle is tested? Take this for example. Australian journalist John Lawrence pressed Donald Trump on his business dealings in Washington, and Trump wasn't too happy. Take a look for yourself.
It is appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well, what does it want in return?
Quiet.
Days later, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation was denied entry to Trump's press conference in London. Maybe the invite got lost in the mail, but the message was clear. Those who pressed too hard were pushed out. And it wasn't just in politics. The reaction reached into entertainment too.
But tonight, we are all Jimmy Kimmel. I still have a show though, right? Okay, good.
We have another fun, hilarious, administration-compliant show.
Back here at home, his administration is pursuing a crackdown on free speech. And completely unrelated, I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump.
Now, the American Broadcasting Corporation suspended Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely, something unheard of for a late-night host. It wasn't that Kimmel mocked Kirk. He actually called the killing a senseless murder, criticized those celebrating it, and warned that Trump's team was working very hard to capitalize on it.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
Trump's response? Applause for the American Broadcasting Corporation, as he took to Truth Social, saying this, finally having the courage to do what had to be done, coupled with a swipe at Kimmel's ratings. What followed was bigger than one comedian. Kirk's death became a political tool, sparking a debate that split fast. One side calling to punish irresponsible speech, and the other warning against creeping censorship. It showed that the argument over free speech isn't settled. Its boundaries keep being redrawn, often by those who control the platforms. And that's where the fractures play out most clearly. In the battle over narrative, what gets amplified and what gets left out. And it's on our platforms. It's on YouTube, X, TikTok, Facebook. And while people argued over Kirk's death, Israel was pouring millions into digital ad campaigns, including a $45 million deal with YouTube and millions more on X. Now, these campaigns weren't just aimed at shaping public opinion, but also at international institutions like the UN's Refugee Agency, UNRWA, and advocacy groups such as the Hind Rajab Foundation. And what were they trying to do? They were trying to portray them as obstacles to aid or even linked to extremism. Now, critics say that when government use tech platforms like this, it often blurs the line between advertising and propaganda, especially when counterclaims are contested or hard to verify. And it wasn't only online. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was quick to comment on Kirk's death and went as far as distancing themselves from theories suggesting Israel had any connection to the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane.
The pattern is clear. Whether through paid campaigns or corporate suspensions, the real issue isn't just what's said, it's who decides what the audience gets to hear. Charlie Kirk's death even spilled into protests in the UK. Leading the movement was Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, the former leader of the English Defence League, a figure long associated with US pro-Israel money. Robinson framed the movement as part of his familiar culture war politics. Now, also present was Brian Tamaki, leader of New Zealand's Destiny Church, who has called for banning every religion except Christianity.
There is no other religions. There's only Jesus Christ and then all the rest. This is religious wars. It's Jesus Christ versus Satan. Christianity versus the rest.
Even US politician Valentina Gomez attended, later parading the protest on her X account, though the choice of soundtrack was ironic, a song by a Muslim Somali migrant. Now, Kirk's name was raised alongside calls for a better Britain, opposition to immigration, and Christian identity politics. Those themes weren't far from Kirk's own record. On immigration, he argued that America was strongest when migration was halted, claimed Democrats love it when America becomes less white, and warned of a great replacement at the border. On Islam, he described large Muslim communities as a threat, and even called it the sword the left is using to split the throat of America. Now, for many Muslims, these words were not abstract. They touched daily life, their families, their neighbors, their place in society. That helps explain why, for some, mourning him in silence was complicated. But let's pause here, because there's something deeper going on. This proves something simple but profound. People are capable of compassion. Now, this isn't about weighing tragedies against each other. It's about noticing how the same instinct, compassion, often gets applied so differently. The death of one man stirred vigils. The death of thousands of children was met with worse: justification. Entire families obliterated, children pulled from rubble, hospitals bombed. The real problem isn't faith, it's selective empathy, wherever it shows up. So yes, people can feel, they can mourn, and they can empathize, but it's compassion that has been politicized, seeing some lives as worthy of tears and others are not. And it's that selective compassion that might be the most dangerous aftershock of all. Charlie Kirk's assassination was one act of violence and must be condemned in the strongest terms. But what came after showed something bigger. His death sparked grief, anger, censorship, and political opportunism. Each reaction revealed as much about society as it did about him. The danger isn't only in how stories are told, but in how quickly violence can start to feel normal. When every tragedy is turned into a tool, politics stops being about ideas and becomes about force. And that's the real fault line, not just in America, but across borders and platforms. Who controls the story and how far people will go to defend it? And that leaves us with the test. If violence keeps setting the rules, compassion and dialogue will fade. And once that balance tips, it's not just one man's death that matters. It's the way we deal with conflict itself.